Hi guys, today we're going to look at some of the functionality offered inside ReplayNode to support maker checker functionality. So the use case for this, you have a workflow, you have messages flowing through the workflow. There's been a problem and somebody from operations needs to come in, correct that problem and republish the message. But you need to have governance and you need to have audit. So it's not sufficient that a single person get to push that message through. It could be something sensitive like a payment. In that scenario, you want to be able to define multiple levels of control where perhaps one or two or n additional members of the team have to validate that that message is acceptable before it's passed downstream. So for this demo, we're gonna organize it like this. The first operations guy injects a message. To the front end to this workflow, we're going to use ActiveMQ. So we've got a bunch of queues. We've got an inject message queue, which is going to serve as the input to this. And we're going to use the ReplayNode tools to do that injection. Once that message has been injected into the workflow, it's going to be captured by ReplayNode. And it's held in the maker checker module. So the same guy that published the message, he logs into ReplayNode and he looks at the message and he authorizes it. So he becomes the maker in this model. The message is reviewed and released or rejected. So this is a second operations guy. He's going to log into ReplayNode. He's going to see that an additional approval is required on this message. The status will be pending and he needs to either approve or reject that message. Once that's happened, the message will be routed based on whether it was approved or rejected. So each workflow can be defined to have an approval destination and a rejected destination. The project is going to look a bit like this. So part one is where we inject the message. It goes into the test maker checker node and sits inside the maker checker engine. I have two users set up inside on this machine that allows me to simulate this. So I've got my CTARP user, which will be making the transaction, and the MTARP user that will be approving it. Based on that, it will go to endpoints inside ActiveMQ. So these workflows need to be defined inside a config file called ReplayNode.xml. And what this contains is the name of the node that you want to use, the user IDs of the users that are able to approve or reject on this workflow, the number of approvals that are needed before it's considered to be approved, and where to send the messages once it's been approved or rejected. So without further ado, if we look at the actual project that this boils down to, so I have a test server with this project installed on it. We can take a look at the logic inside that project. So what's happening here is we have a route that's consuming from ActiveMQ direct in, and it's sending it to ReplayNode, where the node type is maker checker. This is the route that handles approvals. This is the route that handles rejections. And the configuration file, this ReplayNode.xml, looks like this. So here we've defined, we can have an arbitrarily large number of workflows. This one's called testMC, requires 2 authorizers, and if rejected, send the message to direct handle rejections, and if it's approved, the URI is direct handle approvals. And you can see here the direct handle approvals. What it's going to do is it's going to put a message in a log file to say that the message has been approved. It's going to say what the message is, and then it's going to route it to ActiveMQ to this queue. So the queues are the ways in and out of the demo. If we go to the queue browser, there are 3 queues set up, which right now have nothing on them. So first off, we'll simulate this activity by injecting in a test payment like this. So it's just a basic sample message with a name, a narrative, account number, a beneficiary, and an amount, basically. So if we take this and we're now connected to DirectIn Maker Checker, and if we go to the injection area and we publish this, going back to this queue, this queue's empty because it's been consumed by the input Maker Checker. If we log into ReplayNode to see what's there now, we can see that we have our payment. It's being captured by ReplayNode, and the name of it is TestMC. The type is, this got this disconnect in it, is a Maker Checker node type. So if we look at this for approval, we can see that this is my user. This is a user that I'm currently logged in as. The status is pending. It's neither approved nor rejected. It requires 2 distinct approvals before it can be released, and there are 0 approvals granted. So let's reject this one. Let's reject this one and see what happens. So we're going to give a reason and perhaps bad recipient. So now this goes to the rejected status. This will stay here, and if I need to audit what's happening, I can always see the notes that have been left by the various approvers along the way. If I now go back to my ActiveMQ, I can see that this message is now sitting on the rejected queue. Now this workflow inside rejected, this could do much more than just log this out and send it to a queue. It could send out emails and notifications, and there could be an additional workflow behind this that will allow operations to restart the correction process and iterate around it as needed. So what we'll do is we'll go back to the Maker Checker Direct In, and we'll modify it. We'll say instead of it being John Smith, we'll send it to John Jones. We'll change the account number. So if we publish this now and go back to ReplayNode, we can see that we've got another one, and this one's in the pending state. So let's take a look at that in Maker Checker. This one will approve. So I'm going to approve this. Go ahead and approve it. Approved, all good. So now we can see that there's still an additional approval required, and I can't do this as the current user. Attempt to auth twice. It's not going to let me. You can't make and approve the same transaction. So this is what you would expect. So what I'll do is I will log out of this, and I'll log in as my second user. Run this as a different user. So this has a user called mtarpy on the machine. So this Maker Checker functionality supports any number of authorizers, any number of authorization steps. So if you want 4 eyes or 6 eyes or 8 eyes, this is all possible via the ReplayNode configuration for your workflow. So now if I go back to my Maker Checker ReplayNode, now if I try to authorize this, we can see that actually the ActiveM user is my mtarpy user. So now I can let's authorize it. So now this is considered to be done. again, the audit trail will stay around, so it's possible to see the history of every message that's been approved or rejected. So now if we look at our queue, our approved queue, we can see that the message with the changed name, with the John Jones instead of John Smith, has been delivered there, and he changed the account numbers there. So we have a queue of rejected, and we have a queue for approved, which in a real world situation would route that message to the downstream payment system in this case. So just to recap on what we've done, we designed a node that had an approval requirement of two. Two people have to approve it. We injected a message in to simulate a real-world operations problem where an operations engineer has to come in and correct some problem, correct the data to push it downstream. Because of the maker checker functionality in ReplayNode, that then requires an additional user, not the guy that injected it, to approve that message to make sure that the governance is in place for that. And then we have two downstream destinations to handle potentially a repair queue for rejects and a downstream queue for real processing. That's it. Thanks for listening.